worked to bring this project to life. To our landscape design unit, especially Rayshawn Landrum, Jeff Carl, and the whole team, your creativity and dedication are reflected in every detail of this space. To our vendors, WCI, thank you for your craftsmanship and commitment to excellence. And to the mayor, thank you for your vision, your leadership, in ensuring that the legacy of Dr. Ossian Sweet is honored and commemorated here in such a meaningful way. Today we gather not only to open a memorial park, but to honor the remarkable courage of Dr. Sweet, a man whose determination to protect his family and home became a pivotal chapter in Detroit's civil rights history. In 1925, Dr. Sweet took a stand against racial injustice, and his trial became a landmark case for equality and the protection of civil rights in America. This memorial park will serve as his history, and it will not fade with time. It creates a space where residents, visitors, and future generations can reflect and learn and draw from the inspiration and courage that he had that night. So with further ado, I would like to bring up Mayor Mike Duggan.
Well, this is a special day for everybody in the city, and it's especially special to me that Ms. Jackie Spott, the niece of Dr. Ossian Sweet, and her daughter Kiva are here to celebrate this day with us. And your family means so much to this community. This case was one I studied from the time I was in law school. And when I became the Wayne County prosecutor, the fact that the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office had prosecuted the Sweet family in the 1920s, to me, was one of the great injustices of the office. And I pushed in those years to have the historic marker that you see out in front of it. That marker was not placed there till the early 2000s when we pushed for it. We were not keeping alive, as far as I was concerned, the memory of what happened. And you know the story. Dr. Ossian Sweet and his family bought this house 100 years ago in June. They knew they were moving in to an all-white neighborhood. They knew that several African-American families that have moved into white neighborhoods in other parts of the city, that immediately what happened was so-called neighborhood improvement associations gathered and vandalized and attacked those families until family after family, they were driven out of the white neighborhoods. But Dr. Sweet's family was made of pretty stern stuff. And when they moved in here with his brothers and family members, over at the site of the school, hundreds of people gathered, the so-called Improvement Association, and for 2 straight nights, the crowds, the mobs out here, people throwing rocks, threatening the family. They didn't know if they were going to survive. And the second night, shots rang out, and a gentleman on the porch right across the street was shot and killed. And of course, the police didn't arrest any of the people in the mob. They arrested all the members of the family. And ultimately, after a hung jury, in the second case, Dr. Ossian Sweet's brother, Henry, was acquitted by an all-white jury who concluded that every person has a right to defend their home. They changed the history of neighborhoods across the city and really across the country. When Clarence Darrow was brought in by the NAACP to defend the Sweet family, the entire spotlight of America was here. The Baxter family took this over, 1960? 1958. And it's hard to believe the Baxters have owned the house longer than the Sweet family owned the house, and they have been just phenomenal stewards of the history, the building itself. But when I got here in 2013, as you could see, the block was deteriorating. We had some abandoned houses. I said, we're not going to leave these lots sit here. We wanted to build a memorial park, and Crystal Perkins, GSD, and the whole team did a beautiful job of commemorating using this space. And then Rico Razzo and our building team. Rico, where are you? Rico, raise your hand. You see those houses across the street? They were all scheduled for demolition. Rico has restored those houses to the way they looked in 1925. And we're going to sell them to families that are going to move in, like the Baxter family has moved in here, because there is an opportunity for historic tourism in this city. And we have some great history to tell. And we are going to make sure that the corner of Charlevoix and Garland is going to be one of those destinations. This is a site that we can be proud of. The history isn't something we're proud of, but the way we remember where we've come from and where we are now is really important. And because of the Baxter family, you could actually go in upstairs, sit in that upstairs window and look out, and imagine the mob that family saw 100 years ago, and knowing all the police officers are down there, they weren't doing anything to protect you. There was nobody to protect you but themselves, and you can experience what that family went to and how much they've helped. And so with that, as you can probably tell, I'm a huge fan of the Baxter family. Nobody had to twist their arms. They raised money to restore the house. They've supported us in the building of this Memorial Plaza. And so please welcome the current owner of the house, Dan Baxter.
Well, good afternoon. Among the number of my professions, I am also a preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I would like for each and every one of you to turn to your neighbor and say to them, "This is dope." Amen, 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 amen. This is a great day. Let's give it up one more time for our mayor, Mike Duggan. One of the greatest partners that I've ever had an opportunity to work with. I just want to tell you just a little bit in terms of my experience and how I got to know about Dr. Ossian Sweet. It was 1975, October to be exact. We had a half a day at my school. I went to Patronage of St. Joseph Catholic School, gang sign. And when we got home, my mother had lunch prepared at the kitchen table. So my brother and I, we sat at the table, we were eating lunch, and the doorbell rings. My mother goes to answer the door, and she comes back and she says, "Herbert, the man from the paper is here to talk to you about the house." My father was adamant about not talking to the man. My mother kept pressing him, saying, "Herbert, well, somebody has to talk to the man." And he turned down his paper and he looked across the table and he told my mother to send Danny. My mother looked at me and she said, "Well, Danny, do you want to go and talk to the man?" I said, "Yes." So I went out there, 10 years old. I sat on the cobblestone fence, and the man asked me a question. He said, "Young man, what's your name?" I said, "It's Danny Baxter." He says, "Do you know the history of your house?" I said, "Yes. A black man lived here. He killed a white guy, and he didn't go to jail for it." So he smiled at me. He asked me a couple of more questions. He took a picture, and he left. The following day, when I went back to school, after the bell rings, my teacher, Miss Dorothy Barnes, stands in front of the class and says, "Hey, everybody, we have a celebrity among us." And then she opens up this paper that has an article that says, "Not much has changed since the 25 trials." And in the middle of the article was the picture that the man from the paper took of me. It was the story of Dr. Ossian Sweet. My teacher asked me to get up and tell everybody about the history of my house. So I told them what I told the man from the paper. A black guy used to live here. He killed a white guy and didn't go to jail for it. They laughed. They asked me a couple more questions. I didn't have answers. But that day I came back home and I said to my mother, "Mother, I want to learn more about the man who lived in this house." She went into the pantry. She grabbed a banker's bag with a treasure of articles. They were the stories of Dr. Sweet. I went into the living room, laid them all out on the floor. I started reading them, and I was just impacted and fascinated by that story. And I went back into the kitchen to my mother, and I said, "Mom, did that really happen?" She said, "Yes, baby, it sure did." I said, "Well, Mama, one day, I'm going to do something to make sure that everybody in the world knows what happened on the corner of Garland and Charlevoix." And she said, "Baby, I sure hope I live to see it." And you know, she did see it. And let me tell you how. So, as the mayor mentioned, in 2004, the National Black Prosecutors came to Detroit and they wanted to have their convention here. And one of the features that they wanted to execute was a tour of the Ossian Sweet House. Mayor Duggan, then prosecuting attorney, said, well, you know what? You need to go over there and ask the Baxter family would they be interested in the historical marker. In July of that same year, we marched from Howe School, where the riot occurred, where the people from the Waterworks Improvement Association gathered. We marched from there right to the front of this house to unveil that historical marker. Fast forward to 2016, it was Good Friday. I remember the mayor, the clerk, and I met to discuss the implications and the strategies of the 2016 presidential election. After that conversation, he said to me, Baxter, does your family still own that sweet house? I said, yes. He said, you know, I'd like to sit down with you and talk about ways that we can create an opportunity to restore it. And I said, yes. And look at us today. As a result of that, we have the opportunity to be enriched by the history and the legacy and resilience of Dr. Ossian Sweet. And I am ever so grateful that on that 2018, when we got the money for the marker, my mother was sitting right on the front porch. She was in her deathbed. I called the day before, asked my sister would she be able to be a part of the press conference. My sister said she's not going to be able to make it. And sure enough, when we were standing across the street, getting ready to start the press conference, someone shouted, there's somebody coming out of the house. I looked back to see if it was Dr. Sweet. But it was my mother. It was my mother and my sister. She mustered up enough energy to see the day that this project took off. And I'm ever so grateful. And I want to say to you again, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody who participated and did the work. Alex, raise your hand. He's the contractor that did the work inside of the house. I'm ever so grateful for him, his patience. And I also want to just say this. Mr. Mayor, as prosecuting attorney, we got the marker. As mayor, we got all of this done. Lord have mercy. What's going to happen when you become governor? Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Daniel. Thank you. Well, as you know, projects like this don't happen alone. We can't do it in silos. It was everybody working together. But I would like to bring up someone special to this project. Not only did he help work on the project, but he lives in this neighborhood. And so what we talked about, Daniel and I, in the past, is that this project helps revitalize this neighborhood. And so this young man helped revitalize his neighborhood. Rayshawn? And I would like to say Rayshawn is probably the most quietest person on our team. Doesn't like the spotlight. When they ask me, can he speak? I'm like, see if he wants to speak. So you'll hear from Rayshawn next.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited today. Today is a great day. I'd like to start off with a short story about how much this memorial means to me, to this community, and beyond. I moved in this neighborhood about 6 years ago, not knowing the history that stood here today. But a few years later, while driving down Garland Avenue, I actually stopped at that traffic light and noticed that there was a historical marker at the house. And I read it, and I saw the name. It said Dr. Sweet. I went back home and did my own research, and surely enough, I first couldn't believe the story that I read. I was just in disbelief. And secondly, I was deeply moved and saddened by the devastating events Dr. Sweet faced in his lifetime. Months later after that, I heard that our GSD team was going to be doing a project, and I didn't even I was just in so disbelief that wow, I read about this story. Now, how come there's about to be a project along the same timeline that I found out about the history of it? So now today, we're all here to see that there's a lot of interpretive signage for us to learn about the history of Dr. Sweet and the events during his time. So pretty much, this place will allow us to reflect, connect, and feel. And for this neighborhood, and for all who visit, this is our story. And I hope that this is an inspiration to the youth, especially to Hutchinson Elementary and Middle School, but also Southeastern High School, to believe in your dreams, no matter how far-fetched there can be, because you never know how impactful that could be. And who knows, my family and I wouldn't probably be living in this neighborhood if it wasn't for Dr. Sweet and his family. But before I close, I want to thank my team members, Jeff Klein and Ariana Zanetti, and the rest of our GSD team. Also want to thank our consultants, AE Collaborative, Flutter and Wow, Bishop Land and Design, and Quinn Evans for their role in the master plan and fabrication of the signage. And finally, a big thank you to our contractors, WCI. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of such a wonderful opportunity in this neighborhood, but also for the legacy that is going to be living beyond our years. So I'm truly grateful, and thank you all for coming out.
Thank you, Rayshawn. Before I bring up the next speaker, I just want to point out that we have a few things that symbolizes that night to help commemorate what happens and leave that legacy and that memory here. And if you look around the perimeter of the property, you see the 2 trees up front. That's 2 of the trees, and around the perimeter, there's 9 other trees. And it represents the individuals who were here at the home that night. Coming up, we'll be celebrating the 100-year anniversary, and this tree in the middle was planted to represent Iva, and that was the Sweet's baby. Dr. Sweet bought this house for his family, and the unfortunate thing is his sacrifices, his commitment to making sure his family was safe, he did not able to get to enjoy this home with his family. So we want to make sure we're continuing to commemorate his legacy, that his story is not forgotten. So now I want to bring up the next speaker. A few months ago at this very property, I met the most sweetest lady I can ever meet, Miss Spot. Miss Spot is the niece of Dr. Sweet, and she told me that day that she grew up not really knowing the story until she was much older, because it was a little like taboo in their family because someone was killed. But as she grew up and she understood the history and the legacy behind it, she's here to help us celebrate that. Because I was a little embarrassed when I found out about this as an adult at work. Growing up in the city of Detroit, this is not something I knew. So I'm very excited about this project, and I really want our next generation to know and understand the history here in this neighborhood, how this family helped change laws in the country, not just the city. So your next voice you will hear will be Miss Jackie Spot.
Good afternoon. I want to start by asking everyone at this time, give a standing ovation to our mayor, because without him, this project may not have ever come to fruition. I give honor and thanks to God. I also give thanks to Mayor Duggan and Daniel Baxter. As it has been said, I grew up with Dr. Sweet's mother, who reared me, because my mother was here during the time helping them during the trial. And at this point in time, she contracted tuberculosis, but she didn't know it at that time. And after she had me and my brother, she passed away. So I was reared by the same woman who reared him. And as it has been stated, because there was someone who lost their life, they did not talk about Detroit and that part of it. They only talked about Detroit as their business place. But in every year, the brothers came home. From Thanksgiving to Easter, they stayed and took care of us and the mom and whatever else was needed. And I want you all to know that Dr. Sweet fought each and every day that he could for civil rights. He never stopped. He organized. January the 1st, New Year's Day, you knew to go to the ballpark because he was going to read out the Proclamation of Emancipation. And he got the people to come hear him do this every year and talk about the importance of voting and politics. And he got them there because he fed them. So they would come, but you didn't get anything until after he gave his speech. But he constantly fought for civil rights. And that's what I want all of us to know, that we have to vote. We want Mayor Duggan as our next governor. We can't do that if we're going to stay home. I need each one to reach one. I need each one of you to find someone who you know that's not registered and get them registered. Don't just stop there. Make sure in November and all of the other elections, your person takes somebody else. And the other part is that you find, once you got that person, keep finding new people. We do not want to go backwards. So, and we have to keep this going. This has been over 100 years. And in Florida, all the people could vote, especially in Polk County. And I can remember my grandmother going to the polls to vote. Therefore, there is no excuse that we can't do the same. I thank you. I appreciate you, Detroit. I love you. And just as it has been stated, I did not know. I was teaching when I saw this article in the newspaper, like, what? Are you talking about the same people I'm talking about? And that's when I had to contact family members, like, so why didn't you all tell me? But I knew about the importance of voting. I thank you, thank you, thank you, and may God bless you all.
So now the moment we've been waiting for. So I'd like to take a moment to allow Ms. Jackie and the news to get over to the ribbon so we can cut the ribbon. It is my great honor for us to officially open the Dr. Ossian Sweet Memorial Park. May this park be a place where we not only remember the past, but are inspired to create a future worthy of Dr. Sweet's courage. Let it be a space where dialogue, understanding, and unity may flourish. Let's cut the ribbon.